So I've had the privilege of being able to talk to Robert Wolf, MD, here for a couple of minutes before we began the recording. And he's such a cool guy. He's a lot of fun to just chat with. And I'm looking forward to this interview. He's also a radiologist. And I got to tell him just now that a radiologist saved my life a long time ago. So thank you for what you do, Robert Wolf. And thank you for joining me on the show.
Well, you're welcome. No charge. I've been doing it for 34 years. I've been in radiology. Hard to believe. It doesn't feel like that. Where did the time go? But thank you for having me. I really appreciate you having me on the show, and a pleasure meeting you. And hopefully we can continue more of these discussions beyond this podcast. But thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So we talked a little bit about we have a shared passion for wanting to bring forward some of the struggles of the past. Your personal connection to that is far deeper than mine. So let's start a little bit with who you are. Where did you grow up? Where are you originally from?
Well, I'm Rob Wolf. Like I said, I'm a radiologist. I was born in Detroit. I was raised in a small town called Mount Clemens, K through 12. It was a great place to grow up. My parents were very good to me. My dad became an OBGYN and delivered 10,000 babies in the Detroit area, which is called Redemption, which is the punchline for the whole thing, which makes the whole story more interesting. But in the background, I was pretty much a straight A student in high school. I was a good student. Played all the sports, had some great friends, most of them Christian. My high school was actually 3 Jews in the whole high school, about 40% African American. My synagogue was across the street from the old high school, the old synagogue, and it was the only one in my county. Maybe 100 Jewish families in my county growing up, but that was a pretty thriving Jewish community. Now it's dwindled down to almost nothing, unfortunately. This is Macomb County surrounding Detroit. Oakland County and Wayne County have a lot more of a Jewish population, and also suburbia like the universities like Lansing, where Michigan State is, and my alma mater, University of Michigan, Go Blue. They won the championship. A lot of Jewish people there, of course, as well, but not so much in my neighborhood. So I grew up with a lot of Christian friends, Jewish friends too. Went to Tufts University. I was fortunate enough to be able to go to Tufts University. Just met their new president a couple of days ago. Came down here to Palm Beach to do a meet and greet, and that was a great experience. Donated to him a copy of my book as a welcome gift. So Tufts was a great experience. And I went to Michigan Medical School, went into radiology after I did a 1-year internship at Framingham Hospital outside of Boston, Framingham Heart Study. They were famous for that. Then residency in radiology at Brown, and I did a neuroradiology fellowship at Yale. And that ended about last year when I was about 60. No, that ended about 29 or 30. I was about halfway. It's about halfway through my life. I'm an indentured servant, literally almost half my life. So finally got a job and then another one and moved a few times. Ended up living half my life in New England, half my life in Michigan, and now 4 years in Florida. I've got a lot of friends down here. I got friends all over the country. I'm an only child of only children. Both my parents have passed. And after my mom passed, we can talk about the history of the book a little bit. That brought me to the book itself. So I got a lot of interest, sports, music. I'm a foodie. I'm into fitness, golf, pickleball, history, now apparently marketing and writing and all these new hobbies that I picked up unbeknownst to me. Suddenly I'm zapped and I'm a victim of it, but it's more of a heartfelt project that I did with this book, and I'm glad I did. It was always science, math, and anatomy, and now it's marketing and English and writing and philosophy, history. It's a lot of things. I learn stuff every day. It's another lesson: never stop learning. You're never too old to learn. You're never too old to write. You're never too old to pivot. Enough philosophy. It's enough about me, I suppose. But I've been a very spoiled kid growing up, but I worked hard all my life. I justified that treatment after seeing what my mom and dad had gone through. That made me realize even more how spoiled we are, most Americans. I mean, a lot of us work hard, but we also have a lot of entitlement in this country. And unfortunately, we have a lot of strife in this country now too, and elsewhere in the world. So my job now, even more so, is to fight that off. And that's just what I'm trying to do with this new book of mine.
And I love that you've done this. I love that you have all of these passions, and they all seem to be converging for the same purpose, which is incredible. Now, I do record my episodes in advance, but I thought you would probably appreciate knowing that this is going to be airing during Holocaust Memorial Day, which begins the sundown of May 5th and continues until the sundown of May 6th. So this episode is actually going to be airing on May 5th in honor of Holocaust Memorial Day. So this is in your father's honor. So
I
thank
appreciate
you
that.
for
So I
everything
think
you've
you
done.
mean the show, because there's also one coming
This,
up on Saturday. There's one Saturday. It's called also the Holocaust Remembrance Day. I mixed them up, but I think it's
right,
the International Holocaust Remembrance Day, and you're talking about the Yom HaShoah, the day of the remembrance of the Holocaust. So
right.
every day, I mean, we talk about Black Lives Matter, Jewish Lives Matter. I say all lives matter. Every month, every day should be, let's celebrate not only who we are, but our neighbors, our religions. It shouldn't have to be a designated day, unfortunately, but at least there's something out there. Especially now, we need more
Right.
days of this kind of thing. But I appreciate that. That's very meaningful and very thoughtful.
Absolutely. So your book, Not a Real Enemy, the true story of a Hungarian Jewish man's fight for freedom. I love this. Let's talk a little bit about your book, about the story behind it. And you have a painting in the background, and I want to hear how that ties in too.
Okay, we can start with that too. Well, here's the book. Like Forrest Gump would say, "That's my book. That's my boat." So you can see it's won 4 awards, which I don't even know what that means. I mean, I'm still trying to digest that. It's amazing. I guess the bottom line is I appreciate the recognition of the quality of the work and the importance of the work, and that's the best I can do with it. But there's been no time to celebrate. But it's a good point that we've won the 4 awards, so that people that are reading this realize that it's a good book and a good quality book. So I don't forget, working backwards, this picture it's a painting. I wish I could mag up on it. I've got my beautiful Florida background, but it's a painting of peasants out in the fields picking whatever they can. And peasants were a big part of my dad's survival in forced labor camps out in the middle of nowhere in Hungary. So the painting it's a beautiful painting. It's one of many works that my parents had before they passed away. Some we sold, some I kept. This one was too sentimental for me not to hold on to. It was in my dad's office for as long as I was around, and I can see why that painting was so important to him. There's no signature on it, so I don't know who the artist is, but it's a very sentimental painting. And in the other room, like I was telling you, we also have some stained glass from my parents' synagogue from Michigan from 1909. It's a beautiful stained glass lead window that's hanging by my outside window, and it's beautiful in the morning when the sun comes in. And those are two of my most sentimental keepsakes from my parents' household when they had passed. So that's the painting. The history of the book is my dad and mom wrote my dad's autobiography in the 1970s. So they did it in memoir style, but they wrote his whole lifetime. It wasn't just usually a memoir is 1 or 2 stories. This was his whole life as he remembered it. My parents this was in the 70s, and they were very sharp, very well educated people. Their English as Hungarians, even having to learn the language when they came here, was better than most Americans that I know. But they wrote the stories in pencil and paper as though the stories had happened the previous day. Their memories were sharp, and the descriptions were enlightening, revealing, very lifelike. And so they turned from pencil and paper to typewriter to a computer to a disc. It was on a manuscript. I probably read it 30 years ago once, didn't think much of it. I did remember his first escape. Dad had 4. And he even missed an escape or two, which the luck on this guy, it's saved his life missing these escapes. I mean, just talk about blessed. But I remember his first escape out of the 4, and that one stuck with me. But when I reread, so let's fast forward to 1997. Dad passed away, unfortunately. 2016, my mom passed away. A historian friend of mine, it was my parents' historian friend in Mount Clemens, hands me a disc. The disc is now the book, and she says, "You've got to look at this." And I didn't think much of it at the time because I was busy taking care of my mom's affairs. That was a good year. And then I took a year to retire, actually. Then a friend of mine in Michigan wanted me to help him do some x-rays and ultrasound out of a clinic in Michigan. And I decided okay, I'll help him. So it was very part-time work. That brought me to the disc. And so between reading radiology cases, whereas we have 2 screens, the left screen is the radiology queue, the list, and the right screen are the images. Just as we had that, we loaded up the disc. My dad's autobiography was on the left. I was doing his biography on the right between cases. And that was another year. And then I queried agents, publishers with very little success. And I got some book reviews and some beta reads. And I met an author, Lisa Tenner, who hooked me up with my co-author, Janice Harper, who for a fee, said she would help me redo the book. She could coach me through it. I could do it, or she could do it, or both. So I kind of let her take the reins. She took the information from otherwise I can't say it's a boring biography, but it's point A to B to C, and it's a little bit dull except on this, but she turned it into a real novel, a real book, parallel stories, converging stories, letters to and from home, conversations, deep, meaningful conversations, and all of it based on what my dad said in the autobiography. The fidelity of what my dad turned his autobiography into a biography, it was intact. Whatever he said, if dad said that that's what happened, then that's what happened. So after that, we started querying publishers and agents. Janice helped me with my proposal package, and she vetted out the publishers and agents very, very carefully. Got us down to about 12 or 15. Ninth inning, bottom of the ninth inning, shoestring catch. We get Amsterdam Publishers. Lisbeth Hink is the chief there out of Amsterdam. This is all they do. She picked it up, and I'm so grateful to her. So this was last year, and we ran with it. And very lucky to have a publisher like that who's meticulous, insightful, and caring, and very selective. So it was a privilege to be able to be selected by her. Now they're putting about 3 books a month. Mostly Holocaust related. Mine's a little more than that because we cover a little bit of World War I, and we certainly cover the communist era and the Hungarian Revolution, after which my parents escaped. Another great chapter, one of many. And so here we are. I mean, now the book's been out for a while. I've been to Israel talking about the book, London, Illinois, Toronto, Detroit, Phoenix. And I hope to do it all again. I'm going to Texas. I'm going to the Holocaust Museum in Texas in March. I did the Illinois Holocaust Museum talk in Illinois, very well received. And I'm in talks now with the United States Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C. And hopefully the book is on sale there. And hopefully we get a program where I get to do a book signing at the very least, maybe a talk as well, and on and on. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. Ongoing, working hard at it, and trying to spread the message, fighting anti-Semitism, and especially now, where my slippery slope went like this, where I'm thinking nobody cares about anti-Semitism, racism, to this, where you may care, but you're trying to climb well, you're in Colorado, you know what a steep slope is like, with a lot of ice and with an ice pick and trying to climb up, and I'm not a mountain climber, so, but
Yeah.
the message is there. You get the message right away from the book. It converted me into a different way of thinking. It's already converted a lot of people into a different way of thinking. And that was the whole point of the book to me. That's what the grab was. That's what the zap was, is that the message here was so good and so clear, and how my dad survived and made it through all of these harrowing episodes time after time and time again. It's just amazing. And so I had to share it with the world. I couldn't just leave it on a disc or a computer. And
Right.
hopefully we convert a lot more people to thinking that way, and Christian and Jewish, not just. And I
Right.
do have a lot of Muslim friends too, and Asian friends, and this is, I'm not. Yeah, I'm not African American friends, and I hope to have more between the book talks, touring, things like this, the podcast, and the best thing is when people reach out and say, "Wow, this book was wonderful," and I say, "Well, please write a review or invite me to a talk. Let's tell more people about it," and that's how we're going to fight anti-Semitism and racism, and also get it taught in the classroom. And I'm
Yes.
working on that slowly. I keep pitching that idea, especially now with all these university and college campus ruckuses. But I think the point's getting across.
And there's so much of this that isn't being taught anymore. And I love that you're doing so much more than just raising awareness with your book. You're also donating 10% of the proceeds to the Holocaust Memorial Museum in Washington, D.C., where they're also carrying your book. They've got your book at the Illinois Holocaust Museum and the Education Center. Um, it's available on Amazon for people that are wanting to get a hold of it and wanted to support your mission with raising funds to help the education of people through these beautiful museums. You've donated copies to the Yad Vashem, the Florida Holocaust Museum, the Holocaust Museum in Johannesburg, Joburg for all of my South Africa friends. I have a few. The Museum of History and Holocaust Education in Atlanta, Georgia, the Imperial War Museum in London, the Zeckelman Holocaust Center in Michigan. Oh my gosh, your book is everywhere. And if people aren't grabbing this, they're stupid.
Yeah, I don't want to say that word because I can't insult potential customers. I can't, everybody gets pitched. I mean, that's a Judeo-Christian. It doesn't matter. The book's a great book, and if you don't
Yeah.
want to read it, no skin off of my teeth. But if you don't read it, that's a great going the opposite way. Like, I don't care if you don't read my book. I really don't. There's 7 billion people on this planet. North Koreans, they don't care. Iranians, they don't
Yeah.
care. Russians, they don't care. But if you don't read this book, you're missing out on an awfully good story that's got a lot of meaning. That's a reverse pitch, and I don't mean that. I'm saying, but yeah, I've probably donated at least 100 or 200 books in my so far in this process. So
Yeah.
I've donated to rock and roll bands that are local. I've donated on a date or two. Yeah, those kind of things. But also sell a lot of books too. So you try not to pitch too much, but when people hear what the story's about and the meaning and how it ties into what's going on today, it's an easier sell once they realize what it is. The book business, the entertainment business, very competitive.
Absolutely.
Two other places. So Barnes and Noble, the book's on sale at Barnes and Noble brick and mortar as well. So not all of them, obviously, maybe 10 or 15 now, thanks to help from my PR people. But go into a Barnes and Noble, and it's Barnes and Noble online, or you can ask them to get it in the bookstore. You can ask your local library. Everything helps. And it's also available at my alma mater, the Tufts University bookstore, too, which I think is a Barnes and Noble affiliate. I just reached
Wow.
out to the Indigo bookstore CEO in Canada, and I hope to hear back from her. And they've been vandalized, and because she's a Jewish lady, and they've had their issues with anti-Semitism in Canada, maybe even worse than the United States, from what I'm seeing, and it's really a sad thing. But the Indigo bookstore chain it's a beautiful bookstore chain, and it'd be great to get my foot in the door there as well, because Canada it'd be a great market to tap. I have cousins that still live in Toronto, second cousins. They're Orthodox. They've lived there all their lives. One is a dentist. One runs an office store. They're really nice family people. There's thousands of them like it in that city, and Montreal, and Vancouver, and New York. And don't focus on these people just because they're not like you. It's not fair. It's not right. It's inappropriate.
Yeah. Yeah. And you briefly touched on the fact that it has 4 awards currently. I was looking at these awards. You've won a Nautilus Book Award, which there's a lot of people out there that are going to absolutely recognize exactly what that is. A National Indie Excellence Award, a Living Now Book Award, and a Reader's Favorite Book Award for the year 2023. I mean, this is no small achievement, Rob.
I
You've
know, pinch man.
you've
Well,
worked
I got to give,
hard.
I don't give my co-author enough credit for that, because she turned the book into something really, really great. The story itself meant so much, and the story itself was so unbelievable that that's a big part of it. But when she converted that book into a special novel, a special biography, then that was the turning point. But and we were lucky enough to get the publishers on board too, Amsterdam publisher. But I have to credit a lot of people, not just. We also had the history verified by Dr. Peter Black, who used to work at the Holocaust Museum. He's retired, and he was unbelievably great. The testimonials that we had, one of them was from Michael Berenbaum, who was an assistant to Steven Spielberg during the Shoah movie. He's out in California as well. He wrote a nice testimonial, as did 2 other very fine professors. One in Israel, who I met and took he and his wife to dinner, actually, when I was in Israel last year. Very nice people. And yeah, I don't, people are recognizing this book's good, and I appreciate it. I just don't have time to even celebrate it or absorb it, or I don't even know what the word is, but I do appreciate the recognition and the meaning of that, meaning that people feel the importance of the story, and also the way it's told, and so well organized, and just it's a page turner, as many people say. And the history is true. That besides what my dad said about it, we had the true history verified. And I did my homework too. When I wrote my part, I did my homework. My co-author did her homework. I mean, she went on to call Hungarian friends and see what the culture was like, and the food and the music. She really did her homework. So, and
That's
then
cool.
of course a historian, just to verify it's a history light book. I mean, my co-author will argue it's a history book, but it's biography as much as history, but it all blends in. And it's
Yeah.
pretty complete about that area from, like I said, World War I to the end of the Hungarian Revolution in 1956.
Right. And the Hungarian Revolution is something that a lot of people aren't even aware that exists, especially if they are living here in the US and we are so closed down. The only war of any kind that we're really familiar with here in the US that happened during the 1950s is the Korean conflict, which wasn't even really a war. So this is all part of history that is world history that we're not being taught in any regard. And we need a lot more of this in our schools, in our museums, in our day-to-day life.
It's funny you say that, because in the Yad Vashem and even in the Illinois Holocaust Museum, there wasn't a lot about the history of Hungary, and I'd like to slip a little bit in there. Now, I can't speak for the U.S. Holocaust Museum in D.C. I'm sure there's probably more than anywhere else, but a lot of places may be devoid of that because a lot of Hungarians were slaughtered. A lot of them went away. 570,000 people, plus or minus, and that's out of like 800,000 total. So most of that country's Jewish population. And I might throw in other than just Jews, priests, Christians, gays, disabled. It wasn't just Jews. I mean, 50 million people died. I was recently told by a friend, Avi Hoffman, who's a famous actor down here in Florida. 50 million people died in World War II. So it's 500,000 Jewish men from the United States went over to Europe and fought for or let's say Europe and Asia. So not a lot of people know that either. A lot of people know about Poland, England, France, Germany, Pearl Harbor, Okinawa, the bombings, the nuclear bombs, but not a lot of people know about Czech Republic, back Czechoslovakia, Hungary, the smaller countries they just don't know about it. So it helps in that because it's not a heavy history book, but it does say that it wasn't just in these areas; it was other places that were affected too, and it also covers forced labor camps. These where men were conscripted for slave labor, and ironically, that's what saved their lives, is they were useful. They were working, sometimes doing helpful things for the cause, and sometimes just doing mindless labor in the freezing cold and the scorching heat, whatever it was. But the fact that they weren't free and often starving and soon to be dead, as it turns out, because they'd had death marches with these people too, as the war was approaching an end. That's when my dad decided to create his first escape, and then a second, and then a third. His other two were during communist Hungary, but his first two were from forced labor camps, and amazing, miraculous stories. By the time the book is over, first of all, you can put yourself in my dad's shoes. That this could be me. You'd say, Jewish or Christian, it could be a bad neighbor, a bad business deal, a bad local government, a bad federal government, bad foreign government that can change your life, a natural disaster, something could change your life. This could be me on the run, no place to live, nothing to eat, no money, no friends, no parents or family. It could be us. So you put yourself in that place by the end of the book. My dad's risk tolerance was so unbelievable by the end of the movie the end of the book, that it was incredible. So it just escape after escape. I mean, that was how he lived. You survived. You didn't even think twice about it. I better escape or I'm dead. And really, it's a very sad, very tragic thing that you had to live like that for months on end. But he did it, and did it with integrity. Did it with determination. There's not enough adjectives in the English language to describe. And he turned out, I mentioned the OB/GYN, he loved his work. He would have delivered babies till the day he died. Jovial, jolly, goes into work, says hi to everybody, the janitor, the secretary, the nurse. I come with him when he goes on rounds. He puts me in the doctor's lounge, and smiling, and just loved what he did. And that kind of convinced me into going into medicine, just the way he loved it. And always told me, don't do it for the money. Do it because you love it. And my mom would say, and I'm going to paraphrase because I'm trying to do my Hungarian accent. They never taught me Hungarian, but I do know the swear words and things. And my mom would say with the Jewish guilt, "You couldn't do this while we were still alive." That's what she'd say. And she would also say, I guess you only won 4 awards. That's it. So I'm kidding when I say that. But my mom had a little bit of helicopter mom in her, and a little bit of PTSD, but she fought that off she belonged to ORT. She was president of the local chapter of ORT. She was active in the medical community, the BTM sisterhood, our own synagogue. So my mom and dad were active in the Jewish community, the medical community. They used to have Hungarian goulash parties for everybody. And they were Holocaust educators throughout their lives. Me, I only got the bug the last 5-8 years of my life lately, after mom and dad had gone. So Jewish guilt or not, I got the zap. The people think it's corny, but I say that the disc called out to me like Superman's kryptonite. It actually summoned me, and I put the thing in, and once I started reading it, I said, geez, this has got to be put out. This has got to be put out there. I can't just sit here in my office. So a lot of stuff packed into a few minutes here, but it stirs up a lot of emotion, and a lot of people ask me, is it emotional talking about this book? Was it emotional doing it? Hell yeah, it's crazy. People say I got to put the book down. Most people say it's a page turner. Some people say I got to put the book down when they talk about Auschwitz and this and that. My dad's parents. It didn't go so good for everybody, and that's all in there. No sugarcoating in this book. It is what it is. But myself too, when I was writing it, I had to walk away sometimes for a couple of days, a week, and that it wasn't just procrastination. It was time to absorb what am I really talking about here? What are we talking about? So very difficult, but very heartfelt, and so glad I did it now, and so glad to be share the story with people like you, another survivor, and God bless you for that. I mean, it's PTSD is so common here, and we talk about the Vietnam War vets, and not so much Korea anymore. But I don't know how I would have survived what my dad went through, and I don't know how most of us would. I just can't. I can't say how most of us could do it. We would have to if we could. You got to be able to run. You got to be able to go without food for days. You got to be able to be quick on your feet, quick with your mind. It's just, you got to know who your enemies are and who your friends are, and that's in the book too. We don't sometimes there's twists and turns. You don't know who your friends
Mm.
are. You don't know who your enemies are. It's a cloak and dagger story.
If you've enjoyed this episode, please make sure you check out the episode description. You'll find links there on how you can learn more about this guest, links to connect with them on social media, and how to support the podcast. Remember, I don't get paid to do this. My boss is a bit tight fisted, but I can say that. I work for myself.